Rise and shine, campers. It's time to get your booties. It's going to be cold. Oh, wait, that's the movie. Never mind. So, hey, it's welcome to another edition of Think with a Drink. We're celebrating a happy Groundhog Day. Craig, how are you on this Groundhog Day?
Cold. So they were right. It is going to be cold today.
It is going to be cold. It's going to be cold tomorrow. It's going to be cold the day after that. So look at that. It's just going to stay cold for us for a while. Go ahead.
So they actually canceled school because of the cold.
Get out.
No, my wife's is canceled. I think Boston's canceled too.
Really?
Yes.
Look at that. That's
well.
Yeah, well, they said, but it's only going to be like for 2 days, and then it's going to go away. It's going to be 50 again next week. So I'll take winter like that. I'll take 2 days of frigid cold in the trade-off of having 50-degree days. Anyway, we are doing, this is Groundhog Day, so we figured we would do what we call financial missteps, right? Nobody makes mistakes. These are missteps. These are, why do we make them? Why do we keep repeating them? And what are some of the things that we can do to try to help ourselves stop this behavior and stop repeating those same missteps over and over and over again? Kind of like Bill Murray. His name was Phil in the movie too, wasn't it? Like Puxatawny, his name was Phil as well. Yeah,
I think I look good as a groundhog, actually.
Yeah, you actually. I like your teeth. You keep your teeth very, very well there. All right, let's just do a little quick checklist for everybody as we get started. So just know we're recording this. We just keep your microphones muted. We've got it so that the cameras don't matter because it's just Craig and I. There is a chat box, so if you do have questions, feel free. We're always happy to take some questions. And I will introduce my co-pilot in a second, who's here to keep me on pace, answer anything in the chat box, and in case my system happens to blink out here, he's going to take over. So we're all good with that. A little bit about us. My name is Tom Alessi. I am the president of the ARIES Foundation for Financial Education. I've actually been in financial services through my 23rd year. I'm actually in my 24th year. I'm an investment advisor. That means I act as a fiduciary whenever I'm giving guidance or advice to my clients. I want to bring my vice president. Yeah, I got your numbers are way off, Craig.
I just get younger every time we do this. So I'm Craig Richardson. I'm the vice president of the ARIES Foundation. I've actually been doing this a little over 19 years now. And I act as a financial services representative. My specialty is working with families, individuals to help them reach their financial goals and have a better relationship with their money.
All right, so for everybody who doesn't know, Think with a Drink is brought to you by the ARIES Foundation for Financial Education. You can visit us on the web. It's ariesfoundation.org. We're a nonprofit dedicated to the mission of trying to help everyone have a better relationship with their money. Because whether you realize it or not, you're in a relationship with your money. And just like every other personal relationship that you have, there are behaviors and triggers and things that cause us to act, like Craig and I like to say, a little irrationally sometimes when it comes to handling our finances. All ARIES tries to do is help everyone have a better sense of that, feel a little less intimidated, a little bit easier with handling and dealing with their money. All right, so there's a lot of words on the screen and I'm not going to read them. So just know we're a nonprofit. We do this for educational and informational reasons only. We share this material on our website. We share it on our YouTube channel. All we ask is that if you're going to share it, you do it in an educational manner. However, Craig, myself, the rest of the ARIES team, we always strongly recommend that if you ever do have questions that are of a tax, legal, or financial matter, that you seek out the help of a professional when getting those questions answered. All right, I got through that okay.
Well, that's
So now
awesome.
we come to the fun part of the evening, right? Which is that we call this Think with a Drink. And there's a reason for that, is that we are trying to do this in a very casual, very relaxed manner. A lot of people, Craig, get tied up in that money and finances becomes this intimidating, this oh, it's too complicated thing. So we try to make sure it's not complicated, that it is more user-friendly, more relatable to everybody. And we can't think of a better way to do that than if we have something cold to sip on. And so for this one, it's Groundhog Day, and it's very funny because we've sort of been in this rut of German beers and German lagers over the last couple of weeks. So I've got Oktoberfest. Why not, right? It's another German beer. And let's face it, if they didn't invent brewing, they certainly turned it into a religion. So the idea here, so this is from our friends at Goose Island. And so the interesting thing here is they call it Oktoberfest, but you can see on the label, it's actually a Marzan. And so what a Marzan is it's literally an Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
It's just brewed outside the city limits of Munich, Germany. So
yeah, okay.
In order to be a traditional true Oktoberfest lager, it has to be brewed in the city of Munich. Every other Oktoberfest that calls itself an Oktoberfest is a Marzan.
Gotcha. So this is not a towny beer. This is an out-of-towny beer.
This is an out-of-towny beer. This is like every other Oktoberfest on the planet, because technically by German, rules and bylaws, the only thing that can call itself an Oktoberfest is brewed in the city of Munich. Yeah. So food pairings, like we like to talk about food pairings. This one is for you, Greg. So this is Marzans are Oktoberfest. These are built for, the schnitzel and the spatzel and the sausages, anything that is German related. This is it, right? This is the thing that's going to take that on. If you were
have to drink it, you wearing lederhosen?
The leader, it's very much encouraged. Yes, very much encouraged. I will say to you, for a little off the board pairing, like we like to try to go down that road, dessert, like maybe something with caramel and nuts in it. You would offset some of that. So what are you drinking this evening?
Like a turtle, right?
Oh, good choice there. That would go well. Yeah.
You got the nuts and everything going.
Right.
So in hopes of an early spring, I'm actually drinking a Wachusett ale, blueberry.
Okay. Blueberry, there you go. See, I don't know. Did Phil actually see his shadow? I didn't know. I have not.
He did. It's going to be an early spring, so I guess he did see it shadow.
Then cheers to an early spring with Puxatawny.
There you go.
Yeah, you can definitely taste that. Nice. Okay. Where we're headed here. So this is Financial Groundhog Day, right? Missteps that we keep repeating, why it happens, action steps to sort of take control, some of the things and tips and trips to deal with it, and how planning can help you sort of get through that process. So we call this Financial Groundhog Day, and yes, it's an homage to the Bill Murray movie, which, by the way, is going to be 30 years old this year.
Wow.
1993.
Happy anniversary.
1993 it was released, so I believe it's going to be 30 years old this year. It's Groundhog Day again, yes. So, the concept here is we all have these things that we do with money that we sometimes come back to and say, I can't believe I did that again. Or, I spent it on this, or I spent it on that. I just blew my money doing this. Like, these things are what we're talking about, Craig. Those sort of, I don't want to call them habits, but they are habits, but in reverse, they're bad habits.
Well, yes. I mean, I think all of us get into those types of ruts, whether that be with a bad habit, right? Trying to stop the bad habit and going right back to it.
Yeah.
And money, you can have bad habits with money as well. And we're going to talk about some of those bad habits as we go forward here.
Yeah, and one of the things with that, let's face it, one of the first things is that, like any other relationship, like we talk about, is we're not being truthful with ourselves, with how we're handling our money, right? So we may believe that we've got a handle on the money coming in, the money going out, but is that really the case? And some of this is that I've got to really own up to the fact that maybe I'm not really watching where I'm spending every dime or where my money is actually going.
Yeah, a big reason that this happens too, Tom, especially when you're younger, is because if you got a good job and you have a steady paycheck coming in, that next check helps you make up for that financial misstep that you had before. It's
Oh
not until
yeah, right.
yeah, it's not until you're facing that fixed income piece when that paycheck's going to stop that you go, oh my God, what have I been spending?
Yeah, what did I spend it all on? So it is, and it's one of those, and we'll talk about this later with some of the things that you can do, some of the guidance, some of the steps with that. But we really believe that one of the biggest things is just like any other relationship, it's trying to be honest and truthful. And you've got to understand, yes, maybe I don't have as much of a handle on it, or maybe, some people will just say I'm not good with money. But we think that's a little bit of an excuse, Craig, right? Saying that is trying to like slough it off and say, well, I just don't get it. Well, do some things that will allow you to feel better about it or feel, more in control of it.
You got to say, okay, Mr. Jackson, it's time you and I had an honest conversation.
There you go. Yes, let's sit down. Let's get to know each other. Let's make sure we got, we're on the same page with everything that we're doing.
Or George Washington, or whatever president you like to talk to.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody in there, right? In terms of, I think the Benjamins are the way to
One
go.
of those
But
dead
that's
presidents, right?
all right. So, missteps that we keep repeating. So let's say, the first thing here is let's face it, it's impulse buying. And, we talk about this all the time with the idea that there is this constant barrage of, being able to just get something immediately.
Well, I mean, I watch all the commercials and they tell me I deserve it and I don't have to wait and I should have it right now. So what's the problem with that?
Oh, so you just mentioned that. I have to say this because I think these are some of and these are major corporations, major banks that have these ads about these forward paycheck things.
Oh my God.
Right. Like, hey, you can get paid 2 days early with this, right? So go out and spend the money. It's really showing somebody getting it 2 days ago and then going out and boozing, like heading to a bar or something or going to a club, right? Instead of putting the money away.
Right. And you already spent it before you even got it. So by the time you get there, even poorer.
Correct.
But you had fun.
Oh yeah, you had fun. It was great. But see, it's those type of things like that. The balance has to be sort of, you need to have a conversation with your money at that point to say, wait a minute, dude, we're not going out tonight. We're going to stay in. We'll go out tomorrow night or Friday night, but we're not going out tonight.
Well, that works for Phil Connor because he's going to die and I'll start all over again the next day anyway. So
yes, that's his last name.
But for us, that doesn't work.
So that, for those who Craig dropped the reference, that is Bill Murray's character in the movie. I couldn't remember his last name. I knew it was Phil though. So that's one of the things, the impulse buying, right? The other is, for those who don't have money in the bank or really run the fine line of, it's there, but it's barely got a pulse sitting in the bank, that you run into these overdraft fees. And overdraft fees, it's an amazing amount of money that the banks are charging for individuals when this happens.
Well, I love this, Tom, too, right? You go to the ATM, right? You try to pull out 20 bucks. They say, oh, you don't have it. And then you charge you $35 for an overdraft fee. Well, if I didn't have the 20 bucks, how am I going to pay the 35?
Exactly. And so it's just realizing that these are, these fees, ATM fees is another one, right? So that's another conversation with these are all things that drag money from us that don't necessarily have to. Don't use the ATM machine or whoever's ATM is lying around, you need it, go in and buy something and use the card and get extra money. You don't get charged for that. All right, and then debt, right? So, past due notices, these are charges and fees that get added onto when we're not paying our debts in time, specifically credit cards. You know, they are hitting us with overages and higher fees or higher balances, you know, or, you know, those segments that they give you with oh, hey, it's 0% if you pay it off in the next 6 months. But if you don't pay it off, the little tiny line says, by the way, we're going to go back to day one and we're going to hit you with 20% interest all the way through.
Yeah, and you know what? They count on us to do that. They count on people to lose track, forget, make that mistake, and the next thing you know, you nailed down with a 22% interest rate and a bill you can't afford. So
right.
And just keep shutting the wall.
You know, it's these are some things that these just keep happening, right? We keep doing this. We keep impulse buying. We keep getting overdraft or ATM fees. We keep not paying the bill on time. You know, these are all missteps that occur, right? And, you know, another one of those, and that's I love this card. It's buy all things, right? So it's just, I love that. That's using the plastic everywhere and just buying and sort of talks about that whole thing with the idea of give it to me now, you know, wants versus needs, Greg. Like we talk about that all the time, this whole idea of, well, I have plastic, I can just buy this thing right now.
Yeah, I wish I had one that said, do you really want this? Before instead of buy all things.
Or had like the minute you picked it up, like it had some sort of like electroshock thing, you know, well, like wait a minute, oh, I don't want to take that out of my wallet. I'm gonna get zapped every time I pick it up. We should invent that, right? So, you know, some sort of like an electro zap thing for your
that'll
car.
be really popular, right?
Yeah. All right, so this is, you can't really read it on the screen there because it says hamster wheel of debt, right? So the hamster wheel of debt, you know, really is the conversation that says, all right, I have debt. And it's not so much that I had debt, it's just that you made the steps, you did the things you needed to do, you were in the right place and you paid the debt off. And then you turned right around and you opened the debt up all over again.
Yay!
That's the hamster wheel of debt, right? So the idea here is I go through the machinations of putting it all together, I get it taken care of, and then immediately something else comes along and I'm stuck. And a lot of times this happens because we don't have an emergency fund or assets that we can tap into, and we weren't prepared when the car breaks down, the fridge goes out, or something else occurs, and now we have to put it on credit. And we wind up in this debt wheel.
Yeah, but if I pay off my debt, shouldn't I reward myself by buying myself something on my new open credit?
Yes, you should, but that should be a savings account or something that you're saving up for, like some sort of a money market fund or something that you're saving down the road for. Not something
no fun.
It's no fun at all. I get it, but you have to be thinking about this trade-off. I understand we want to live today. We get it, and we'll talk about that. But you got to have this trade-off occurring.
Well, the other thing
now you can read the hamster wheel of debt.
Yeah, I think the other thing that people discount too, Tom, is the fact that when you do this, the things that you do want cost you that much more. Yeah. So it makes everything in your life more expensive. And when people going, I don't have enough money to begin with, why do you want to pay, you know, twice as much for everything because you're paying interest and all the charges?
Right, exactly. And then the last one is, you know, what we would call, like, what did they used to call it? Keeping up with the Joneses, right? Oh, this is living beyond my means.
That's why I keep asking you what car you're getting this spring, so I know what car I got to get this spring.
Yes, well, I'm not getting one. I'm driving my wife's car. I told you that. That's the whole deal.
I'll just drive my wife's car.
There you go. See, but no, you know, it is this mantra, this idea that, well, hey, the neighbor has it, I should have it, or the guy down the street just got one, I should get one. Like all of this conversation about things that may or may not necessarily need, but suddenly becomes one, and we end up living beyond our lifestyle. Mm-hmm. This is probably the biggest one of them all, besides the whole impulse buying. This one gets everybody because you're trying to keep up where you're outside of a limit that you should be spending or should be trying to live on because you got no way to replace it.
Right. And all these come down to, really making emotional decisions about money, not financial decisions about money. Right. Why do you have to keep up with the Joneses? Because is that ego? Is it embarrassment? What's the driver that makes you spend that money on things that you never wouldn't normally spend it on?
Exactly.
Same hamster wheel of debt, right? It's like, why am I getting myself back in that debt? Is it just habit? Or is it because, once you said, I got to have it?
I gotta have it, gotta get it now, right? That whole thing. And so, before we go into how we deal with that, one of the things we do say to everybody is, look, sometimes this is a conversation. Sometimes this is something that just needs to be talked about or talked to somebody about. And that's kind of why we're here. The whole idea behind this is, again, trying to help everyone have a better relationship with their money. So let's set up a time to chat. There's no cost. It's complimentary. You can see the link is there. You can shoot the QR code. It opens up our calendar and you can just book a time. And we're happy to have a conversation with you about what's top of mind for you or what you're trying to accomplish.
I mean, this could mean no more than, financial, emotional support, right?
Yeah.
These conversations, people call me up, go, my money's pushing me around again. It's bullying me. Okay, well.
Yeah, we need to get the Lucy booth, right? Like the doctor is in, that type of thing. All right, so why, right? Why does this keep happening? Why do we keep repeating these missteps, right? And we talked about some of that whole the emotional crux on it. A lot of that is the endorphin that kicks up. I buy something, I feel good. I'm not feeling good, I want to feel good. I'm going to buy something because I get that immediate rush of adrenaline and good feeling, which eventually fades and goes away, which of course why we wind up with buyer's remorse, because crap, I just spent this money. I didn't have that money.
Yeah, I mean, and like we said, one of our other friends that we talk about all the time, where you can get, push a button, don't even have to pull out your card, and instantly presents show up on your doorstep, right?
Oh, it's crazy. It's like Christmas every day at my house. There's stuff on my doorstep every single day. I have no idea. It's crazy how that happens. Yes, it's a problem, but it's something that we do, and you do have to have that sort of what we'd call the look in the mirror, the conversation with yourself. Well, wait a minute. So we always recommend a little bit, and we'll talk about some of the things you can do here and ways to sort of maybe try to avoid that and go through it. So the first one is that most people are living, paycheck to paycheck, right? So the idea there is, like we talked about, all right, so I'm living payday to payday, paycheck to paycheck. But one of the things you shouldn't do is do that. Hey, I'm going to, get my money early. Like we talked about all of those ads. It's crazy to me that these are banks who are doing this and talking about it. And then they're showing the person going out and blowing the money.
Really, you're paying a fee for that convenience.
I don't think you're paying a fee for it. I think they're just allowing you to get it early.
Oh, okay. I thought
no, there's no fee. They're not one of those. That's like loan sharking. No. We're not doing that. This is just like your bank is giving you access to it, that your paycheck's going to come in. So if you had, $500 that was coming in, they'll say, okay, we're going to pretend like the 500 came in. But then it shows the person going out and blowing the money.
So you just get to spend it earlier.
You just get to spend it earlier. That's what they're talking about. And I'm like, this is like the worst thing, the worst message that you could send to people is, oh, get my money early so I can go out on Thursday night instead of Friday night and blow it, type of thing.
There's only two reasons that happens. First reason is you don't have anything in savings. And the second thing is something unexpected happened that you couldn't afford, so you want to get the money before you have the money.
Right. Exactly.
Both of those two things are controllables.
Yes. Right. And so, the whole idea is we talk about, and Craig and I get very adamant about, not using the B word when it comes to, budgeting, and trying to help everyone sort of get a sense and a handle on where you're spending your money. Because I think that's the most important thing, right, Craig, for us, is trying to figure out where are you spending your money Then we can talk about how and then why. But until you know where you're spending your money, you're just sort of guessing in the most part.
Well, let's put it this way too. A budget is a plan to spend money. What we really want to know before you have the plan is how are you spending your money?
Exactly.
First, you need to know how you're spending it before you can think about talking about the B word.
Right. You know, and for most people, they're dealing with some kind of, you know, debt financing. You know, so this is another one of those that, you know, trying to get a handle on, looking at it, but they're not really thinking about, you know, what am I doing? How am I getting out of this? It's just I'm putting myself in debt and not really thinking about strategies and ways to get out of debt. And then lastly, this is the one that just, you know, drives everything, which is, you know, this whole thing with where, like Craig says, you know, it's a button, right? It's consumerism. The ads keep telling me I deserve all of this. I should have this. It's a driver to it. You know, these are all more of the whys that we get into trouble and some of the things that happen with it, you know, so we live paycheck to paycheck. We don't have a budget. We're not really thinking about how we're dealing with our debt or steps or plans to reduce it. And we get caught up in consumerism.
Yes, those are all
All
the
right.
traps.
So more personal reasons, right? You know, when we get to this, that, you know, for most people, they're just not open to change, right? Change is hard. Change is not easy.
Well, who wants to change? I'm comfortable where I am. I don't want-
Comfortable you are, and that's it. And we sort of push it off. Like, I'll deal with it tomorrow. I'll deal with it next month. I'll deal with it in 3 months, whatever the case may be. It's more of ignoring the issues, or, you know, it says hide or shied away. That's the whole, I don't like money, or, you know, it's too complicated. I don't want to deal with it. So I'm just going to put that off.
Right.
And that's how stuff piles up.
I don't math. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like math. I don't like numbers. I don't want to deal with that. Right. You know, a lot of times there is, you know, family and friends who are saying things to you like, don't do that, you know, don't spend that, you know, what are you doing, type of thing. And, you know, that's that I'm immediately going to buffer those people because I'm not listening to them.
Or worse, you do the opposite just because.
Okay, yeah.
Right. I know.
Absolutely right. Yeah. And then the last one is not seeking the help of a professional, right? Because that leads us right into the whole ego thing, right? Because, you know, the ego effect basically says, you know, all right, we have failings. Everybody does. The problem is we tend to sort of brush them aside or say, well, it wasn't that bad. Or, you know, oh, you know, okay, I bought Bitcoin at this amount, but yeah, that was just something, right? You know, these things that happen to us that we're just like, oh, it was okay, you know, it's not learning from the misstep is what happens with the ego effect.
Well, the other issue too here is, you know, if you look at the most successful people, and I don't care in what field, whether it be sports, whether it be business, whether it be anything, entertainment, they have coaches. They have smart people around them so they can do what they do well and have the best advice around them to get to that place. Yeah. No one knows everything. And, you know, trying to, you know, put your ego aside to think you have to know everything. Smart people put smarter people around them.
Right. Right. And so, you know, so what can you do? Right. So what are some of the steps that you can do? Right. So one, you know, absolutely, you can start setting up, if your employer has access to it, direct deposit, an automatic savings plan, because this is going to help you do more than anything else. Having that money go direct into your bank and then have the bank move it into other accounts, and we'll talk about that in the next slide, is going to do fundamentally more for you than any other thing that we're talking about. Setting up goals, right? We always talk about that, Craig, about setting goals and having goals I'm trying to achieve to get to something, whether that's paying down debt, whether that's saving for a car or a home or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, that, you know, they used to do, you know, let's say in our parents' generation, that we just don't do now. They would save up for something. They would delay the gratification until they knew they could afford it, right? However, like you said, consumerism has caused us to say, well, we don't have to wait. You can have it right now.
Yeah, I can get it now. I use that. I can just push a button and it shows up on my doorstep. Like, you know, I don't have to wait for anything.
Right. But there's also a sense of, you know, I think pride with that delayed effect. When you finally do get that big thing you wanted and you had to save for it or you had to wait for it. It's
You had to
almost
wait for it. You saved up for it and you paid for it and you didn't have to worry about carrying debt because, you know, we've been in a very, very low environment for a long time right now. Those days are gone. Those days are over for a while here. And so, you know, the reality of what interest and rates and loans are going to cost you going forward is going to have a brutal impact on a lot of people who have not experienced that.
well, and are you living to support your stuff? Right. The other thing is living within your means. If your whole life is about paying on debt, your whole life is about supporting your stuff, not yourself. So another lesson from the last generation is live within your means.
All right. So see, when we talk about that money going into the bank, right? You know, we talk about setting up a saving strategies. Craig and I always talk about the 3 buckets. And short term is the emergency reserve. That's the I've got to have something set aside for when, you know, everything happens. The problem with that, you know, so we've got short term, I've got midterm, that's maybe 2 to 7 years of something I'm saving up for. And then long term for most people, that's 10 years plus. That's education for a young kid, maybe that's saving for a home or retirement, right? The second one there, you know, is I think the hardest thing for everybody, which is talking about money. We talk just about everything else except for money, right? You know, even politics, God bless, politics and sex. We talk about that more than we talk about money.
Well, not us. We talk about money every day, but
well, yes, but I mean in general, the general population. The conversation about money just doesn't happen. And it's more importantly, when we talk about partners and families, having this conversation specifically not only between spouses, but between generations. Like trying to go, well, that's the thing, is trying to teach your kids that it's okay to have this conversation and to talk about money and take ownership of it.
right, because I think, you know, most children out there have no idea if their family is poor or rich or, you know, how much their family makes as far as income goes. And so trying to explain to them now we can afford something, but then we can't. It's just confusing for the kid because they have no idea what's really until they get their first paycheck and go, well, how come I can't afford everything you can afford?
Yeah. Like, why is this so small? All right. So then other steps. We just talked a little bit about the emergency reserve, but when we say emergency reserve, we're really talking about having this go, money goes into the bank. You then tell the bank to take a portion of that and put it into like a money market or some other account that is not linked to your checking or to your ATM card. So that you literally have to physically make some sort of action, whether that's going to the bank or calling the bank to move the funds to your checking or, you know, something where you can access the money. That should only be there. That's Craig's favorite saying, which is break in case of emergency, break the glass, and right. And then try, you know, so that if the like I said, the car breaks down, the fridge goes out, you need to access the money, then you can go get it.
I bury mine in the backyard in mason jars, and then I built a shed over it. So if I need it,
it could, you know, cause problems for your shed in that situation, but okay.
Definitely got to be an emergency to get to it, though.
Yeah, it's a lot to go through. The other there is, you know, we talk about life insurance and life insurance just because, especially for, you know, 2-income family with home ownership and kids, that what happens when one passes unexpectedly. If there isn't funds there, if there isn't some sort of money that's going to come in, then it's a devastating effect on the family. So it's another thing to be like, wait, I should have this. And then the last one is feel good, be yourself. Like we understand, you know, for us, a big part of this is the balance between the two, right? What is I am doing? I'm trying to live today, but I also got to save for tomorrow. How do I do that? And, you know, don't beat yourself up too much Craig and I talk about the conversations in our head that we're usually worse than any conversation somebody else is having with us. So it's understand, and that's why we call it missteps. It's a process. It's understanding I'm, learning from what I did and altering and making changes going forward.
Well, that's also why we provide all this education, Tom, because when you know better, you do better.
Yes, I like that. Know better, do better.
I made that up.
Yeah. When I say that, author Craig Richard. And then the last one is we talk about, the money and the relationship with money, and then understanding that, it's all about emotion. Money isn't math. We talk about this all the time. Math is math, like 1 + 1 = 2. But when you bring money into the equation, 1 + 1 doesn't necessarily equal 2, right? There's other factors that go into it and other things that happen with our money. And so you've got to understand that. You've got to get a handle on what you're doing. And like Craig said, the biggest thing is that how you're spending your money. We don't care where you're spending it, but you got to have a handle on how and why.
Right. I mean, we have, like we said earlier in the webinar, have an honest relationship about how money makes you feel, good, bad, and why does it make you feel that way? Does it make you? A lot of people would say stressed. Money makes me stressed. Why does it make you stressed? Is it because there's not enough? Because the bills are too much? Because you're carrying too much? What's the reason that the stress is being caused? And then once you understand what's driving you emotionally, you can start doing the financial. Because until you get through the emotional part, we can give you advice all day long. You're not gonna execute it.
Right. And so we say to everybody is, certainly, like Craig said, we're here for that conversation. Let's chat. Let's just have a conversation. What's driving you, or what's the concern for you, and how can we help you sort of get a handle on that, or get around some of that emotion that might be driving that behavior, driving that conversation in your head in terms of going through it. You can shoot the QR code. It'll open up our calendar. There's the link on there. You can copy that, but you can shoot the QR code and it'll open up our calendar, and you can just book a time. We're happy to have a conversation with you at any time.
Well, not any time, but
whenever it's available on the calendar. How's that? All right, so we keep what's on tap. This is Think with a Drink going. What's on tap? What's coming up? So I did this wrong. See, I changed it and then I messed it up. How about that? See?
Well, shouldn't you see creating a family spending plan?
No, it's not. It's Valentine's Day, dude. That's what we're doing next week. 2/9 is Valentine's Day. We're doing Valentine's Day like gifts, should it be more money? Should it be more unique? Men versus women, that whole thing next week. How to survive Valentine's Day. And then on the 16th, we are doing the handle the 401k in a down market, I believe.
I like all messed up. Survive Valentine's Day. I like that one because we told you you're not going to survive.
Not going to survive. I don't know. We'll figure it out. It's on the website. You can go there. It's www.ariesfoundation.org. You can email us at info@ariesfoundation.org. Craig, any questions in the chat box?
No, I don't have any questions in the chat box.
Okay, so no questions in the chat box. We're going to say thanks. Have a very happy, what was his name? Phil Connor?
Yeah, Phil Connor.
Phil Connor, Punxsutawney Phil. Have a happy Groundhog Day, everybody.